Hello and welcome to the final video from my wellbeing session. In previous videos we've looked at who I am, was I an alcoholic, did I want to stop drinking, and why I quit alcohol, why I wrote my books, and then life after alcohol. In this video we're going to focus on how I quit alcohol with a few tips that you'll find from my main book, I Don't Drink. Hope you enjoy it.
So what's in the books? Well, as I say, there's the whole aspect of giving up forever. There's the focus very much of getting your mind on side. And to me, it is the focus. If you just have lists and lists of things that you need to worry about, why am I giving up drink for all of these things? You need to get down to one thing. And the one thing I took on board was gout for me. Yes, it meant I was going to live longer and everything else. I didn't have to, but I don't want this pain again, because I know what this pain is doing to me. It's making me feel old. It's making me old, and it's making me. In fact, I'll never be one of those old men on the beach having fun and being fit in 20 years' time. So I focused on gout, and I made that a huge focus, and I'll come on to how I did that. I talk about creating key lists, lists of not only what you want to achieve, but as soon as you start giving up, listing the benefits that you'll be noticed, all those things that you can't imagine now. Write them down, write your experiences down, because they're things you can look back on. And reminisce. I talk very much about a been there, done that approach, because a lot of people say to me, well, surely you must miss drink if you love drink so much. And I don't, because I've been there, done that. I've been a drunk. I've been probably drinking almost every scenario you can imagine. So I've had all that wine, I've had all that champagne, done all that, enjoyed all that, been there, done. I don't need it again. And I can think of that and then know what comes afterwards. So I can picture myself now drinking a nice glass of Dom Perignon, but know that that would be 2 bottles of Dom Perignon, and I'm going to suffer for that tomorrow. I'll get the gout back and everything else, just wreck my life. So why would I even want to do that? Why would I even think about it? So I encourage very much a been there, done that strategy, and in that I include a lot of my stories that follow on to that. There are stories, for example, where one of the very first things I did after 3 months of giving up, I went to South Africa, which was for the youngest daughter's wedding, and her wedding was actually in a wine farm, would you believe? So turning up sober, I was giving her away and everything else in a wine farm. It started with a wine tasting, and we had a fantastic time. Did it bother me that there was no drink? No. What we did do is go to Byton Vivacting, which is a wine farm in Cape Town, which is my favourite wine ever. It's the most beautiful Sauvignon Blanc. Recommend it if you're still drinkers. But it's fantastic stuff. We went in, we sat there at the wine tasting, called the lady over and asked for a glass of Sauvignon just so I could smell it. And she thought I was mad. And it smelled absolutely beautiful. And was I tempted to drink it? No. Because been there, done that. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Had that, we then had tea there, enjoyed all this Cape Town surroundings and everything else, and drove and went driving along the coast. Wonderful. So completely don't need to do it because I've been there, done that. The reason I got David Copperfield, because we're in a library. Hands up if you actually read David Copperfield. Someone has. You've probably all seen the films and all that sort of stuff. What they leave out is all the best bits, really, unfortunately, David Copperfield. But there's some wonderful stories. Dickens must have been an absolute wreckhead at some stage, because he wouldn't have been able to write what he's written in this book unless he'd been a drunk. There's a wonderful bit where David Copperfield has a housekeeper called Mrs. Krupp, who's looking after him, who is herself a complete alcoholic. And he gets drunk with all his mates. He falls down the stairs. I'll read this little bit out because it does make me laugh. We went downstairs, one behind another. Near the bottom, somebody fell and rolled down. Somebody else said it was Copperfield. I was angry at that false report, until finding myself on my back in the passage, I began to think there might be some foundation for it. Lovely sort of thing. There's another bit where he's in a box with his girlfriend at the theatre. She didn't know he was going to turn up, and he's gone into this absolutely paralytic. And I walked out of the box into my bedroom, which is lovely. He's obviously lost about 3 hours because he was living miles and miles away from the theatre. But he's gone to the theatre, and it goes on, and then he wakes up and he describes the most horrendous hangover experience of it, as only Dickens can. And that's the sort of been there, done that stuff I love. I like to think back, not hide the fact I used to drink, relish the fact I used to drink. Yes, it's part of my life. 40 years I was a drinker. It's great fun. Don't do it anymore, but I'm not hiding from the fact. And it's nice to look back and appreciate some of those things. The other ways I quit alcohol, I added some things to my life which I thought would be beneficial, and I'll share these with you. The very first thing I created was a star chart. Sounds very childlike, but I did that when I gave up smoking, actually. I had a star chart, and I rewarded myself with a star every day, and I thought I'd do the same. And it was fantastic what an incentive that was, every day to stick a star on that chart and know that when I got a whole week, I'd had more stars on my no drinking chart than I'd have ever had in my life. I'd never done a week before without drink. I couldn't then wait to have a month, and a month turned into 2. And that to me was a fantastic incentive to look on that and think, look what I've done. I can visibly see my achievement, as opposed to, I gave up, I think it was whenever. I could say, look at my chart, here's my calendar. And in fact, I kept those calendars running for 3 whole years until last Christmas, 1st of January, I decided I didn't really need that anymore, but it was becoming too much of a habit. But I loved it. It was really great fun. I created a talisman. I came up with the idea. For me, it was a stone because I lived near the beach. And I actually wrote gout on the stone, and I stuck it in my pocket. And I thought, I'm going to carry that with me as a reminder, as a little man on my shoulder, if you like. If anyone says, come on, Julian, have a drink, don't be silly, all this giving up, blah, 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 blah. I've got something else with me that's going to help me do that. And I squeezed the stone, and that was, right, that was all the reminders, all the reasons I don't want to drink were in the squeeze of that stone. It was just something there as a reminder. I didn't need to think about rings, really. I just pick it up, squeeze it, and that was it. I didn't drink. Now, a lot of people have written to me, who've read my book, written to me and given me some quite abuse about the stone, because there's people who've copied that, lost their stone, had to get another one, all sorts of things. I've had all sorts of interesting and amusing comments back about that. But most of them have said either that or something like that, whether it's a little fairy goblin or anything that you have that is there, and you focus on it as the big reason, the focus for you not drinking, and keep that with you, is a real help, particularly in those first few days. If you're going to give up one habit, you need to replace it with other habits. And if that habit's drinking, you need to use that time. So lots of physical activity. You're going to feel so much fitter. You're going to have so much more energy. So as I say, I started the karate. That was the orange belt I got. I'm now on a green belt. I do kayaking. I go swimming every single day, every day. I just did the swimathon last Saturday. I did a 5-kilometre swim on Saturday, for example. I've got new hobbies, like my writing, for example. I've opened up a new business, doing all sorts of things because I've got so much more time, so much more activity. I wouldn't have time to go back to doing drinking, even if I wanted to. And I recommend building yourself a fan club. And that comes to when you start telling people, and I didn't tell my wife straight away that I was giving up drink. I let her notice that I wasn't drinking, which she did. And I said, I'm not very well, and the gout, I'm just going to give it a couple of days off. She didn't know I wasn't drinking at work. She assumed I was still coming home wrecked. But I'd come home and I'd go to bed early and all this sort of thing, because I just wanted those days. I wanted my start. Couldn't wait to get to the end of a week. But eventually I told her, and I said, that's it, I've done a week. I'm never ever drinking again. Just want you to know that. And she became a fan. She was so delighted. She sat there and cried. She said, I can't believe you've done this. I'm so proud of you and everything else. How could I ever break her heart? How could I ever then go back? And the same with my daughters, the same with the mates in the city. Even those who still drink, even those who laughingly give me abuse for drinking, would be horrified if I went back to drinking. So if you build yourself a fan club, you've got them on your side as well. So they're another incentive to never going back and drinking. So the other thing in the book is my methodology. I've set it out in nice, clear terms. You then come to a start button in here, which says once you really get to that, if you read the rest of the book, it means you're no longer a drinker. So are you brave enough to do it? And there's a challenge there. You either throw the book away, stay a complete wreckhead, whatever it is you are at the moment, or you actually decide you're going to not drink. And from that day on, then there are some diary pages. So there's a day 1, day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2, and everything else, which help you, encourage you, but also take you through some of the scenarios which you will experience and which you might be worried about before you give up. So things like, what's it going to be like on holiday? without a drink. You know, I always go away, the 6 of us go away, we go to Spain, we sit around the bar, we sit around the pool, we get absolutely smashed. What's that going to be like without drink? So it talks about those sort of issues, things you need to think about. It talks about that first wedding, and I relate the experiences of the first wedding that I went to. It really helped actually at that one in Cape Town, my daughter's wedding, that the guy running or owned the wine farm, it's actually a German wine farm, who was running the wine tasting, was paralytic. And his big thing was to put a bottle of champagne in the middle of the room. He'd get his helper and he'd get her to hold a sabre, and then he'd come in together and they'd go, oh, and he'd chop the cork off the top of the bottle. And that was his big thing. Now, the fact there was a wedding going on, the fact that his little helper he'd chosen was a bride, and it was my daughter, and the guy was paralytic and all over her, didn't really help. And if I'd have been drinking, I'd have probably gone and punched him. As it was, I just thought, I'm glad that's not me. And I walked out and left it to her husband-to-be to sort out, which is after all his job. And he didn't chop the cork off, he smashed the bottle in half as well anyway, the idiot. And I've got a nice picture of him doing it. So things like that, weddings, what to say to people and what not to say to people. It takes you through those sort of things as well, because people know what your mates are going to say to you. So sort of excuses, and there's lists of excuses in both of those books of things that you can say to people. And if you've got any questions, we can talk about those sort of things as well. But also in the book, there's a self-hypnosis track, which my friend here, Dan Jones, has put together, and which you can download and run, which takes you through that focus. If you think of that one big focus, which was for me was gout. So you don't want that, you want the life you do want, and you focus on those things, and then you tell yourself that you're not drinking because of that, and you repeat that every now and again, as Dan was saying, far more elaborate detail, but you actually get to the point where it just helps embed within you the reasons you're doing this, so that within a day, within 2 days, you're never ever going to be looking back and thinking, I want to drink, because you just won't. So that's 45 minutes. So that's enough about me. Take some questions. There is some help. There are a couple of sites which I follow their blogs because I talk about some of my experiences to help other people. And one is called Club Soda. Another is Hello Sunday Morning, which is an Australian site. And they're very positive in their approach. What I've tried to do in my books is be incredibly positive. I don't just list all the negative things. I don't talk about alcohol like the AA would, that you've got this thing that's following you around, that you're going to be forever an alcoholic. I don't talk about that you need a spirit that you've got to pray to and these sort of things. I just talk about the positive things. If you give up drink and you're like me, these are all the wonderful things you're going to experience. So get a grip, have a look at it, and you try it. So I keep it positive. And both of those sites are very, very positive focus as well. They're unlike some of the other organisations that try and capture you into this world of the fact you're always going to be an alcoholic. Because I am no longer an alcoholic. I just don't drink. I don't smoke. I haven't smoked for 26 years. I don't go around with a label that says smokeaholic or anything like that on it. I don't smoke. I don't eat chocolate either, actually. I don't eat meat any longer. I'm a bit sad. But I hope that's been useful as an insight. My brother's last words to me was, I wish I was doing that too. I'd rung him up. He was in a hospital dying. And I said, I can't come and see you this afternoon because it's a swimathon, which I was doing a few years ago. And I said, I promised to do that, raising £500 for charity. And he said, I wish I was doing that too. I never saw him again. I don't want ever a wish I was doing it too to be on my lips because of booze. If I'm dying of anything else, it can't be helped. But it's something I can control, something I can stop. I'd never, ever let myself get to that.
With your family's experience, do you think...
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you very much. And it's been useful.
Well, that's it from my live session. I hope you found these 3 videos really useful. You can, of course, find out more in my books, but I will be running a 4-day workshop in London sometime soon. And for details of that, or to log your interest in that, you can contact me via my website, idon'tdrink.net. But for the time being, thanks for listening and goodbye.